recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, to the witnesses here, to my colleagues from both parties, to the staff behind us, our visitors, I can tell you almost to the person that you love the schools you've attended, that your children love those schools, and that you trust the teachers in those schools. But what I've listened to in this hearing and others is a false narrative that is being perpetuated that we don't trust our teachers, that we can't trust our teachers, that our teachers are arrogant and feel like they know best. And I can almost guarantee to everyone in this room that that was not your experience when you dealt with teachers, when you dealt with school administrators, when you dealt with school boards, that was not a true reflection of what is actually happening in schools. Issues of student privacy and parents' rights have come up many times in this committee, and they are very important issues. In fact, the argument that I think we would all agree on is there may be, in many ways, no more important issue, but the way that this narrative is being perpetuated is just a disconnect from what's happening in schools. I was a public school teacher for almost 30 years. I am a parent. I was also a Teachers Association president in a conservative community in a suburban school district for the last 8 years that I was teaching. So I've seen these issues from every single angle, and I care deeply about how parents are engaged in their children's educational process and the transparency that all schools should have, and to assure that students feel supported in that educational setting. I started teaching in 1992. If a parent wanted to know how their child was progressing, they might get a report once a quarter, or they would have to call the teacher, or they would have to call the administrator. If they wanted a curriculum, they would have to get a hard copy of that curriculum. Or maybe they would ask their child or rummage through their backpack for information. But now, in 2025, we have greater access to teachers, school administrators, and school board members than ever before. Parents can and are more involved and hold teachers and administrators more accountable than ever before. Access to FERPA and other state and federal laws are clearly displayed on websites. And there are more teacher conferences than ever before. Teachers hand out their cell phone numbers to parents because they care, because they work in partnership with the parents, because they want to make sure that there is academic progress occurring in that partnership, that parents know about the behavior of their students. Parents have access to negative behaviors, disciplinary actions. They have access to all of those things, access like they have never had before. So it is important to realize that when we hear about parental rights, we should be clear that parents have greater access to their child's education than ever before. The teachers that I represented were a true reflection of the district that I taught in. They were not all Democratic members. They were Republicans, Democrats, independents, some more politically engaged than others. But politics wasn't happening in the classroom. Education was happening in the classroom. So I go back to my original statement, which is about think of your experience in the classroom, your own personal experience, your relationship with the teachers. That is what is happening. That's what continues to happen in the classroom. Parents should not be excluded from their child's education, and they are not excluded from their child's education. That was not only what I experienced, but I watched to make sure that fellow teachers, administrators, school board members held each other accountable to make sure that those rights were protected, and that's the parents' rights and the students' rights. I have no questions. I yield back.